The unthinkable has happened. I thought pigs would fly first. I thought that cats would start barking first. But Arm, and they gave me a free hat once, has started producing its own silicon chips. Chips you can take and you can plop into a motherboard and they boot up, and Arm has designed everything. The chip and the CPU and everything, and it just plops, and they're selling it like Intel, like AMD. They've become a chip manufacturer, a chip seller. Now, let me say that again. Arm are making physical chips. The company that for all of its history has been an IP seller. That means it sells designs. It sells CPU designs, GPU designs, sells them to another company. They go ahead and produce the chips. A company like TSMC manufactures them. Now Arm are producing the chips. TSMC are manufacturing it. And you can buy it and put it into a motherboard. I don't know what to say. So if you want to find out more, please let me explain. Okay, so obviously this is quite big news. Now it's a bit nuanced. They're making server chips, and we'll talk more about all of this. So what I want to do is divide the video roughly into two parts. We'll talk about what the actual chip is, what it does, you know, all the nice bits about it, and then we'll talk more about what this means. Okay, let's get cracking. So here is the CEO of Arm, that's Rene Haas, holding the new physical chip, the actual thing that Arm are responsible for putting together in his hand during this keynote speech where it was announced. So it's a real actual chip. Now let's just talk about it a bit. Here is a kind of an overview. You've got up to 136 Neoverse V3 cores, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Each core has 2 megabytes of L2 cache. They can boost up to 3.7 gigahertz. It's a dual chiplet design, so that it's really kind of 68 cores on one side and 68 cores on the other, and then they kind of stitch together. And then because this is going to be used, at high-end server stuff, lots of memory bandwidth, lots of I/O support, 96 lanes of PCIe Gen 6. So this is the kind of thing that needs to be in a server. So it's built on a 3-nanometer process by TSMC, although Samsung and Intel are both mentioned as people who are partnering up also to be involved in this. So let's just talk about Neoverse for a second. Neoverse is basically Arm's set of server chips, and they were launched quite a few years ago now. So of course Arm made its name and took a lot of dominance in the mobile market because everything was designed for run from a battery. So the iPhones and Androids all are based on the Arm architecture. And then they wanted to see this efficiency move into the server. So there's the V series for maximum per thread performance. So it would score highly on Geekbench single threaded score, to kind of put it those ways. So that's designed for the highest single thread performance with less concern about power and area, and area means their silicon, the number of transistors. Then there's the N series, which was optimized for overall efficiency, so more balance between power and performance, which means you can actually use more cores in one processor without having to worry about the thermal problems or kind of power headaches. So those are the two. There's also an E series as well. Now this is based on the V series. So it's Neoverse V3. Now V3 was announced in February of 2024, and the Arm AGI CPU is built on Arm v9.2, has 136 high performance cores, as I just said, each with dual 128-bit SVE, scalar vector extension units. Now this is really important when it comes to things like AI, because these can do a lot of the heavy lifting outside of a GPU, and they can do it inside of the CPU. So they're saying these enable advanced AI and ML acceleration on chip, because it also supports bfloat16 and in-date matrix multiplications. And as I said, it can boost up to 3.7 gigahertz, and the kind of the standard base frequency is 3.2 gigahertz. Okay, just want to take a quick pause from the video to tell you something cool, something that's been a game changer for my audio setup. Now, this segment is sponsored by Mono, who have hooked me up with their PD200W hybrid podcasting microphone. Designed for podcasting and streaming and content creation, it offers greater levels of freedom because it's wireless. Declutter your desk, no more wires. You just need to plug the USB receiver into your computer. For even more freedom, you can just plug the receiver into your iPhone or Android phone, giving you a completely mobile pro setup. Which means you're free to record anywhere at any time, outside, at your desk, or even on your sofa. Now I've got this fan running here and you can clearly hear it on the audio. Now let's turn on slight noise cancellation. Okay, so now we have the first level of noise cancellation and you can already hear a difference. And here we have moderate noise cancellation activated, and you can clearly see now the noise of this fan, it's just sitting just here, has been removed. And there's an even more higher level after that if you really need it. On top of that, there's up to 60 hours of battery life. Now, if you do the maths, think about that, that's actually 2 hours of recording a day for a month. There are apps for Android and iOS, so you can configure and control the PD200W. If you're using it on the desktop, Mono has you covered with software for Windows and Mac OS. Now, while this mic does of course provide lots of wireless freedom, you can also connect it up with an XLR cable. This mic makes it effortless to blend wireless flexibility with pro level clarity. Whether you're podcasting, streaming, doing content creation, or just need to be clearly heard in that online meeting, the PD200W does it all. So if you're curious about leveling up your audio setup, then check out the link in the description below. Now, Neoverse has actually found quite a lot of success. So the NVIDIA Grace and Vera platforms are based on Neoverse. Neoverse V2 for the Grace chips, and the Vera Rubin chips will likely be on V3, although it's not officially announced. Graviton 4 and Graviton 5 are based on Neoverse V2 and V3 respectively. And Microsoft's chip, the Cobalt 100, was based on the Neoverse N2, and then for the Cobalt 200 they moved over to the Neoverse V3. So lots of other people are building Neoverse N and Neoverse V chips. Now, of course, it's one thing having a chip, but in the real world, in the kind of the data centers of the world, these need to go into servers, and then servers need to go into racks. So ARM have kind of got all that sorted to start with, so they've got a kind of reference server configuration. So you're looking at a 10U 2-node design, packing 2 chips with dedicated memory and I/O for 272 cores per blade. These blades are designed to be fully populated in an air-cooled 36 kilowatt rack, and then if you get 30 blades, you get a total of 8,160 cores, and that's that full rack that you see there. And ARM was also working with Supermicro on a liquid-cooled 200 kilowatt design capable of housing 336 of those CPUs, of the Arm AGI CPUs, giving over 45,000 cores. 45,000 cores. Now, as I said, those first ones are air-cooled, and this is where the efficiency of ARM comes in. So you're really just looking at 5 fans at the back of the blade there that can kind of expel the warm air, and this means it fits into the standard kind of infrastructure that's already around. Now, here are the two from the photos that ARM have given. So 31U servers, 8,000 cores, or you've got this liquid-cooled one with 45,656 cores. In fact, it's not only Supermicro that are working with ARM on this. ARM have their reference designs, then you've got Supermicro, then Lenovo and ASRock are also working with ARM. So what workloads are these servers designed for? Why is ARM concentrating on all these servers and blades and air cooling, and what's it all for? Well, actually, Rene Haas had a pretty good explanation of how he sees it during the keynote.
As we move to agentic query, the number of tokens per human go up by 15x, if not greater. The data center is choking. These accelerators, which are very expensive, that generate the tokens, now need to send those tokens back through the cloud. So what you see is a huge bottleneck now. So what does that mean? You need more and more CPUs.
Which then, of course, leads us to why. Why is there now this big switch that ARM have suddenly started making chips, something they've never done? So let's look at what ARM does ship. On the left-hand side, you see IP, intellectual property. That basically means they design CPUs, GPUs, the system IP, how it all glues together with the cache coherency and the buses and all that. And they can sort of sell that, license it to their partners who then put that in their chips. They also, more recently, the last couple of years, come up with this compute subsystems. That basically means they take all those bits and they kind of do a lot of the plumbing for you. And now they've done all the plumbing for you and they actually physically put it into an actual chip. Now, if you want a kind of something to help you grasp this, think about flat pack furniture. It's just like flat pack furniture. Well, in fact, it's nothing like flat pack furniture. But here's the point. You could have somebody design some furniture, IKEA or whoever, okay, and they know how to put it together and they know what bits you need. And all they do is send you the bits. No holes drilled into any of it. None of the screws that you need. None of the brackets that you need. But they just send you the bits. That's kind of the IP bit. You get someone's done the design, it all fits together, but you have to build it all yourself beyond just, you have to drill the holes yourself, you have to find the right screws yourself, but it will fit together when you put it together. Then kind of CSS is kind of like flat pack kind of plus. So you've got that flat pack furniture, but all the drill holes are pre-drilled. You get all the screws, you get all the brackets, you get a set of instructions. In fact, some parts of it may even come pre-assembled. So maybe there are some brackets already attached or some handles already attached. And really, it's just a case of, I just put this in here and put this in there, tighten these few screws, look, and I've got it. That's kind of the CSS bit. And then the production silicon chip is really where the delivery people just come and they just hand you the piece of furniture. It's all fully assembled. Here it is. Now, Arm are now doing all three. They're not getting out of the IP business. They're not getting out of the CSS business, but they are going into the silicon chip business. So thinking more about what does it mean? So again, server chips. So this is obviously an area that Intel are in, that AMD is in, that NVIDIA is in with its Grace super chip and so on. And NVIDIA really just selling the whole thing. Now you can give a CPU and their GPUs in the whole unit, and so AMD the same. They've kind of got everything. So it's a big thing to go against. Now obviously server is where there is lots of money. We've seen prices going up now for RAM, maybe hard drives, SSDs, because there's so much demand now for data centers and the AI stuff and everything that we're doing online nowadays. That's where there are big sales. So obviously that's where Arm are aiming for. Also, Arm isn't really treading on any partners really by going in there. NVIDIA a bit. I mean, NVIDIA even tried to buy Arm, if you remember. That all fell through. NVIDIA do sell basically supercomputers with all their own stuff in it. So kind of Arm are kind of going there. But the other competition is Intel and AMD, so there's no problem. Now, does this mean that Arm are going to make chips in other segments? So what do we look at other segments? Well, there's 3 or 4 we could look at. PCs, first of all. Are we going to see an Arm PC with an Arm chip in it that Arm make and you put it in a motherboard? Now, again, they'll only be competing with Intel and AMD at that point, so they could do that. I don't think you're going to see that because basically the amount of investment they need to put in there to get that to work is, huge investment for a small return, because the consumer market for PCs is quite small relatively. Of course, we're talking millions and millions of dollars, but it's relatively small. So I don't think we're going to see it. It doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. It could certainly happen, but it's not something we're going to see straight away. Though it would be the most natural area that Arm could move into, because they're not treading on the toes of any of their partners. Now, does it mean they're going to make laptop processors? Well, of course, Qualcomm make laptop processors and MediaTek make laptop processors. Now, they're both big Arm partners. Now, Qualcomm, of course, have gone down their own way with its own design of CPU that uses the Arm architecture but isn't a design from Arm. MediaTek are still using designs from Arm, so IP sales there, licensing of the architecture to Qualcomm. So if they started making chips for laptops, that would start treading on a few people's toes. That could upset a few people. And again, though, the investment, does Arm want to invest all that time and effort? Because Qualcomm have tried it and they're not making huge sales. So, there is a history here that kind of people have tried and they're not doing it because Intel is so well established. And we're talking, of course, because of Windows, for example. Because Apple have done it. Apple designed their own ARM-based CPUs with their own IP, and they sell them, and the MacBooks, and it's all ARM-based, and the phones and the tablets are all ARM-based. But that's because they control the ecosystem. So when they say we're moving to ARM, everyone has to jump because that's what they said. In the Windows world, well, Dell makes the PC, Microsoft makes the operating system, someone else makes the hard drive, someone else makes the display, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't think we're going to see ARM moving into the laptop. And then if you go again to smartphones and tablets, well, it's the same thing. I mean, there are so many partners that ARM use, you know, Qualcomm, Samsung, MediaTek, and just so on, that are so just, they've got such a good business model so that their ARM does the design, they make the chips. I don't see ARM kind of going in there and kind of trying to upset everybody. Again, doesn't mean in 25 years time from now that won't happen, or 15 years from now, but right now in the next 5 years that's not going to happen. But at the server market, where there are only frenemies, there's nobody they're really going to partnering with. Nvidia, as I said, is a bit of an interesting one, but they can go ahead in there and try and sell it, and with big margin. That's the idea, of course. Well, be interesting to see what happens. Now, of course, I'd love to get hold of one of these, but I'd need to plug my house into a whole new power grid to even plug one of these things in, because of course they come in huge racks. But it's nice. It's really nice. It'd be nice to be able to log into one day and have a play around with it. But there you go. Love to hear your thoughts. Do tell me, what do you think about all of this? Let me know in the comments below. It's going to be interesting. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.